Welcome back for another round of Vintage. This round I'm back. Martin is on a bit of a break. And Andreas, we will delve a bit deeper into Vintage. Now, this time, we will watch Grixis control versus a Lurus strategy. So, tell me, why would you play Lurus in Vintage?
So first of all, thank you for having me. So Lurus and Vintage. So you basically give up cards like Tinker Citadel, you give up Narset, you give up Monastery Mentor, but other than that, not that much. So Lurus is a great way to ensure you have like a great late game. That card pairs very well with cards like Black Lotus and Mishra's Bauble. And so basically, if you want some longevity in your fair deck, Lurus is a good choice.
Okay, yeah, and in this particular deck, we see quadruple Dark Confident and quadruple Orcish Bowmasters. So 8 creatures, 8 black creatures, 8 black 2-drop. So how impactful are they in this matchup?
Yeah, so first of all, Vintage, because you have all the Moxes, makes those guys turn 1 play a lot of the time. So Dark Confidant, your plan would be to answer 1 for 1, basically like the old Jund decks of Modern, like you just steamroll your opponent with card advantage. And then obviously Orcish Bowmasters, you want to try and negate some brokenness, like Collector that we already see being cast this game, and also keep your opponent's Orcish Bowmasters in check, funnily enough.
Yeah, but looking at the deck list, there is actually no unfair way of closing the game, right? You actually have to go into the red zone and attack with these army tokens.
Yeah, so it'll try and like slow and steady wins the race. The Grixis deck is trying to like bury its opponent in card advantage and close out the game the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. It'll be really interesting because in the previous match, we saw Oath of Druids, a must counter, Doomsday, a must counter. But here, we might actually see a more dragged out game. We trade resources. And so if both players can draw 3 at any time, it's very easy to replenish resources. So would you say that then, that you don't really need to fight over card advantage because it's in abundance anyways?
In some cases, that would be the case. I generally don't like to let Ancestral Recall resolve if I can help it. So I generally think in a matchup like this, this is a cool play actually. But in a matchup like this, it has a lot to do with resources, I would say.
Okay, so upkeep Abrade to make it impossible to go to the main phase with the extra mana. Nice ways to convert your Abrades. A lot of Abrade targets in the format, right?
Yeah, Braid is a very, it's like a Swiss Army knife, because sometimes you make this play. This is a very cool play. Sometimes you kill a annoying creature. I think, that card is quite strong.
Ooh, but a very powerful play in response. Let me repeal my own Black Lotus, draw a card from my trouble, move to the draw step, and still have Black Lotus at the ready.
Yeah, very nice play here from HJ.
Okay, Black
Negated
Lotus
the Braid and drew a card. Yeah.
So how much do you want to turbo out your Lurus? Do you want to wait until actually the game has become a bit more sluggish? Or if you can, you just rush it out?
It's a good question. Also, I think at this point, the players don't have info on each other's decks. They don't really know if they're up against an unfair strategy like Underworld Breach or Paradoxical Outcome just yet. That will be possible to companion Lurus and still play those strategies. So we have a lot more information than the players themselves. But in general, if you play a Lurus off of a Lotus and it gets countered, it's a very big setback. So I would guess most players would go the, let's say, more safe or conservative route and play it slow.
Okay, we might see it played slow as Sol Ring gets Spell Pierced. And we move on to HJ. So how much mana have we got available? We've got 1, 2, potentially 5. What can we do with that situation? So when you're AJ, what are you looking for right now to press the advantage?
Yeah, right now as you're alluding to, HJ has a mana advantage. So he could have something like Hardcast, Lauren Revealed, try and pull ahead on cards in hand. But I think for now, he also likes the Lotus in play. There's the Saga of his own. Yeah, maybe the game can be about that, because if you can't answer your opponent's Saga, then everything is great.
How impactful are the actual constructs? Because like in Modern, for example, they very much are. Is it the same in Vintage?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's part of your like mana base. So if you both draw the same number of, let's say, lands and spells, but you have two 5/5s, that's just gonna win a lot of games where both players draw a lot of counter magic.
It seems like almost by definition, almost every Vintage deck is a Urza Saga supporting deck. You have a bunch of tutor targets every time, be it Mox, Sol Ring, Sensei's Divining Top.
Yeah, I think now even the fair blue decks, quote unquote fair blue decks, have adopted that card. So you play Urza Saga and Wastelands in the same blue deck, which was unheard of before. The workshop decks play that card. So we only have Bazaar and Initiative and Doomsday that don't run that card. So yeah, you're right. It's definitely a very, very highly played card.
Okay, AJ thinking about his options deploys a land. Now the actual raw land count of this deck is pretty low. Both players have sub 14 lands in the deck. How difficult is it to make land drops? And maybe more importantly, how important is it to make land drops?
Yeah, so because of the printing of Lore and Revealed, these decks can cheat a little bit on actual land count. So sometimes you have to mulligan hands where you're only like starting mana. Would have been a land, but now it's Lore and Reveal, so you have to mulligan some hands now and then. But once you get going, it's just like it's so strong. It reminds me of Death Shadow in Modern, where you had like not like almost card advantage because you function on so few lands. So that's kind of what these decks are looking for as well. But yeah, you're right. Not many on paper. Like 12 or 13, I think, is pretty stock.
Yeah, and as we were talking about it, we've got 3 mana floating, Lurus to hand, Crack Lotus, play Lurus, respond by Ancestral, respond with a Flusterstorm, and I think it resolves. So the
Lurrus
advantage
resolve,
buff
yep.
firmly in AJ's position. Now we all crack it for a Bob. Urza Saga ready for a token and the crack, powering out the Academy as well.
Yeah, this was a cool play because it looked like with the Ursa Saga that HJ would just play to make constructs and win that way, but he decided to press the advantage and really go for it here instead.
If in his position, would you have done the same, or would you have gone, under counter magic with the constructs?
It's very tough to say. I think also when you're at the table, you can kind of read your opponent's body language a lot better than we can in the booth. So there's a chance you had a good read that the door was open for Lurrus to make an appearance, and that it was a good way to try and to get as many creatures on the field as possible. But yeah, it's a tough call giving up on a construct, I think.
Okay, so now we've got Ponder looking at 3 cards, but what are we looking for? So preferably you would kill Lurrus, but how many removal spells do we actually play in a format like Vintage?
Yeah, we already saw one lightning bolt and one abrade hit the bin, so not many more. I would say. This is a very, very bad position for Jose, obviously.
Okay, shuffle and a card. Let's redraw a card. So normally, if you don't have a removal spell for what the opponent is doing, you can try to overpower it with something that you do. But it doesn't seem like Jose is able even to come up with anything meaningful of his own.
Yeah, let's see if this Bowmaster changes the equation. I guess with Lurrus in play, it's not really the best strategy to try and 1-for-1 the other things.
Yeah, you could just
besides Lurrus.
replay.
Yep.
Yeah, this Dark Confidant will be replayed soon enough thanks to Lurrus. Okay, untap, draw, and now we make a decision of whether we make a construct or we don't. If we make a construct and tutor something out, Tolarian Academy will be adding 2 mana.
HJ even has a Black Lotus in his yard here, so the world is his oyster at this point of the game.
Okay, and searching out the deck. So are you finding a Mox for even more mana? Are you going for maybe like your own Seize's Divining Top for card selection?
That's a
Or it
good
doesn't
question.
really matter at this point?
Yeah, so at this point of the game, if I'm in HJ's shoes, I'll just assume the worst. So maybe he's afraid of dying to something like a breach, underworld breach kill, but I'm not sure he can tutor anything that helps him in that regard. So maybe mana is what you want to be doing to have more like freedom with, or more opportunities to find interaction if he needs it.
Yeah, because as a reminder, this is a closed decklist tournament, right? So we know that there is nothing threatening that Jose could do, but AJ doesn't know that.
Exactly. So in a powerful position like this, I would generally think about like worst case scenarios and try and pick my saga target with that in mind. But yeah, I'm not sure HJ's deck list allows him to have that much wiggle room. He went for a Mux Jet.
Okay, draw. So we've got now 3 artifacts on the battlefield, so 6 power total. Dak Faden on the stack. So Dak Faden has the powerful minus ability, gain control of target artifact. Crucially, doesn't say non-creature, and that construct is an artifact.
Yeah, that's a good removal spell for this scenario. One of the best cards you can play out of a Grixis fair deck in a situation like this, I would say.
Ken Heiji, considering his options, I think I see Bowmasters and a Force of Will, among other cards. Drown in the Loch.
You don't see that every day in Vintage, let me tell you that.
Wait, that is really something. So 2 mana for an interaction spell isn't like twice as expensive as you'd like it to be.
Yeah, so I guess in deck building, I know he worked with a lot of the Americans to build this deck, so I guess they favor the flexibility of the card. You can kill a creature later, you can counter a spell. Like that flexibility can be worth 1 mana in some instances.
So that has been drowned. No, it hasn't been drowned because it got forced back. Now we play Dak Faden, resolves, minus, take. Now, unfortunately, you can't really move to combat, so AJ is untapping once again with Lurus.
Yeah, and the construct is only a 2/2 on the side of Jose here.
Yeah, exactly. So this game has become really sluggish at this point, attacking with like a 1/1s and 3/2s. I mean, in this case, not even attacking. So it's going to take a while, it seems. No over-the-top plays available for either player. So now we would like to draw into maybe another Urza Saga and just chain them. That Confident allows you to draw into your deck in the pursuit of that Urza Saga. Bowmasters, kill of Dak Faden. So would you say that the advantage buy is in Heijei's position or heavily in Heijei's position?
Yeah, I would say he's still heavily in control of this game. Just every combat step, as long as that Lurus is in play, is going to favor HJ so much.
Okay, untap and let's proceed. Okay, we're upkeep using Sensei's Divining Top, so let's see what we can have as our best draw. I think I saw Urza Saga, which could be a way to contest the opponent's board. Yeah, Urza Saga it is. Trigger, first counter gets there. Now, it's going to take a while until you create 2 constructs. Lorien revealed off the top 5 damage to me.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage here. When you think about the deck building restrictions of Dark Confidant historically, this is very liberal way to build your deck, I would say. Force of Will, Lorien revealed, Force of Negation.
At which point do you try to remove or otherwise kill your own Dark Confidant? Like what life total? Would it be like a 5-ish or maybe even earlier?
Yeah, I would do it. I would definitely do it earlier. I would even think about it now. I see a Skull Clamp in HJ's hand here. I would even think about it now. I'm not looking to lose this game to my own Confidant triggers. That's for sure.
Okay, so instead of doing what you said, well, let's play another one. And
He went the complete opposite direction here and cast a second copy instead.
So we know that there have been like around two forces are in the deck, I think. Around 2 Lorians are in the deck left as well. Let me just double check. So there is plenty of things that can be flipped. I'm just double checking the deck list. There isn't much more that hurts him much, but even if he flips double 2-drop, no. That's 4 damage coming across.
Yeah, so maybe one more turn of Confidant hits, and if he hits like zeros or ones, he keeps going. But it's just so awesome that he has the skull clamp, so you can basically control it.
Oh, okay. 3 damage to me. Senses Divining Top to control the top of the library. Draw the Time Walk.
Yeah, Sensei's Divining Top is a good card when you have a lot of extra mana floating around, and obviously manipulating the top cards converted mana cost for Dark Confidant flips is a strategy as old as time.
So with so many card advantage engines, how often do people actually hardcast Lorien Revealed?
In Vintage, quite often, especially because of like the ability for Urza Saga to find mana. You have Tolarian Academy in the mix. I would say it's very, very strong in Vintage. I'm not sure if it's the best format for the card, but that would be my inclination that it's actually the best in Vintage.
Okay, yeah, we saw it played plenty in Legacy and hardcast also very often. I think our hardcast count went up to like 7 total, which is
I can
7 times.
imagine.
Yeah, 7 times more than I expected.
Yeah, it's definitely hardcastable in all formats that it's played in. But I think Vintage, thanks to all the broken acceleration, I think it's more likely to be hardcast in that format.
Okay, so now we've got 2 blocks on confidence, making HJ not even have to think about removing his own confidence. And if he ever wants to, he can replay them with Lurrus. Constructs are 3/3s, so they both stay alive, and there we trade with the Orc army. Now, if HJ were to remove any artifact that Jose controls, that 2 mark damage would state base kill the constructs.
Yeah, it looks like his plan is to replay Orcish Bowmasters, ping one of the constructs to kill both. But let's see what he goes for.
Okay, black mana floating. A difficult game, and yeah, not something I expected, especially after that Oath of Druid versus Doomsday round. And I certainly did not.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly did not expect Lurrus to come down first of all so early and just stay in play.
A lot of things is happening here. Like the early Lurrus uncontested, it stays in play, but HJ hasn't closed the door on this match yet. Like a lot of things is happening here that's, as you're saying, just showcases the diversity of Vintage compared to the previous match we covered. So yeah, we get a little bit of everything in Vintage, that's for sure.
So I heard you mention that when you play Vintage, you want to be able to mix a bit of unfair with the fair in different ratios depending on the deck list. In this case, you've got double fair deck.
Yep.
Would you count Lurrus as an unfair angle, or they're just completely fair decks in your view?
I would say if there's anything broken going on in these decks, it's the Ursa Saga angle. This is one as fair as it gets for blue decks in Vintage, really. But it's actually a good point that these decks are no, I don't count Lurrus as unfair thing to do. I count it as a very, very fair and just a way to ensure your longevity against other fair decks, which is an interesting arms race, I would call it.
When coming to a Vintage tournament, you would expect to play against a lot of unfair strategies. So why would you go the route of engaging in an arms race when you're probably not going to play against a lot of fair decks?
Yeah, the thing is these days, Vintage has kind of evolved into the blue-black Lurrus deck being the most played deck. So simply because that's a pretty big chunk of the metagame, if you play a fair deck and you prepare a lot for unfair decks, tweak your deck that way, you'll just be unfavored in the blue-black Lurrus matchup. So I think that's what I mean with arms race. They kind of have to respect the pseudo mirror when building their decks. It's kind of interesting dynamic.
Yeah, now I think now we see HG properly pulling ahead on the battlefield. A lot of power on the field, around like 6, 7. We might be closing the game in 2 or 3 attacks from this position.
Yeah, now it definitely looks like he's in a very dominating position, sending the team here.
So he's 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 damage coming across. And while Jose is able to make constructs, they will be smaller than they would have been a couple of turns ago. From Jose's position, why would you continue this game? Is there any value in like early scooping due to time?
That's actually a good question. I was just thinking about it. From Jose's perspective, you need to leave just a little bit of doubt in HJ that you're an Underworld Breach deck and that you actually have a draw step that will win you the game from this terrible position. So just play the information game a little bit more, and then you can scoop up your cards.
Okay, Lorien revealed is hardcast, so let me update the hardcast count in Twitch chat, because this is the 8th time we're seeing it hardcast on stream. Draw 3.
Yeah, with the help of Teleran Academy, as I talked about, that card with Lauren revealed, it's like Carpet of Flowers and Legacy. It just makes it so much easier to actually get to that end game.
Okay, untap, and let's see what happens. Tick up the saga to 3. Make a token. So it seems like we're very much continuing this game still.
Jose is hanging in there.
Yeah, he very much is. And he's considering his options. We actually don't know his hand too well. Although knowing his deck list, there doesn't seem to be anything that could switch the tide. Mox Sapphire defined. And let's see what the follow-up is. Another Urza Saga. But isn't he dead on the board? So he blocks the biggest creature. That's 3. And then it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coming across. So that wouldn't be enough. However, I would like to read into the card Skull Clamp, which says +1, -1. So maybe you can squeeze 1 more damage through there somehow?
You can either, equip an attacker to attack for 1 more, or kill your own Bowmasters to trigger that on your second main phase. Replay it with Luris.
Yeah, so there are some options there. Yeah, I think he's counting 7 with a block. If you equip pre-combat, then Jose just blocks the biggest creature. So they would just, so it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's still 7, right? Because the unfortunate situation is that every non-3 power creature would die to Skull Clump. So you wouldn't actually add power. But now, Skull Clump on the army, smash in.
Yeah, that is also lethal on my calculator after the block on the 4 power creature. Oh, it's only 7. I thought his life total was also 7. Got it. That's 7 damage. Yep.
Yeah.
And then now I expect HJ to clamp off one of the orcs and finish the job.
I think, yes, scooping them up. HJ up a game. Dimir control over Grixis control, or maybe we could call it Dimir Luris. That might be a bit more apt description. What a game. So I did not expect to watch such a painfully fair game, if I may call it that. It was just unreal, the trading of resources, like actual card draw, creatures, 1/1 creatures, 3/2 creatures mattering a whole bunch. That was an experience. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, so HJ was in the driver's seat from pretty early on, I would say, and Jose was just trying to deny the inevitable. It felt like HJ was just always a step ahead.
Okay, now we see Saga versus Saga, and Saga turn 1 even, which you don't see that much in other formats. How often do you do that in Vintage?
So in this situation, maybe HJ has a hand that just had to do it, and it's not very strong. Like, but he can use the Lauren reveal to like get going, or he's slow rolling a Mox because he saw a Braid the other game. So playing out the Mox turn 2 when you can actually activate Saga can be pretty nice against known artifact removal.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm also looking at the sideboards of these players. And we've got very interesting cards there. Okay, and as I'm looking at the sideboard, Dark Confident comes down. So no Mox, no Construct. But we need to kill that Dark Confident, otherwise it will spiral out of control. Is Dark Confident a great choice nowadays with so few removal spells actually played?
Yeah, it's actually funny because with Orcus Bowmasters being so heavily played, you would think that Dark Confidant is not the best choice. But these players who worked on this deck, they said that in that Bowmaster matchup, if they have to kill your Dark Confidant, you can kill their Bowmasters with yours, and then you kind of have a larger chance of sticking your Bowmasters. So it's not that bad in the context of Bowmaster versus Bowmaster. But yeah, I think I like the card. I'm a bit scared about all the 5-drops you can flip over, but you have some life gain in Lurus.
Are there any particular matchups where you would be afraid of losing that much life? Like
Yeah,
particular,
say,
aggressive,
Yeah, I would say so. So mono white initiative. I don't think Dark Confidant is like the way to win that matchup. Also, most Bazaar strategies. I don't think card advantage is what that game is about either. And even against like deck like Workshop, especially on the draw, it can be quite tough. So that card is like a nod to the format being very blue dominated. That's when you consider a card like Dark Confidant.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Heijay searching with his Urza Saga, considering his options, there's just so many possibilities. We've seen Skull Clamp, Sol Ring. Mox Sapphire is the actual find. What do you think of this choice?
Yeah, I think we will know in a bit why he picked that card. So generally, you want to pick that card if you're looking to play like multiple spells. If you're just looking to have as much mana as possible, you had like better options, like you talked about. So this could be a case of HJ. Yeah, I'm really not sure. Maybe he wants. Okay,
Oh,
Bowmasters and
that is
Fluster Storm up.
vicious.
Yeah, very
That
nice.
is,
When you get to kill a construct token with a Bowmaster trigger, that's a good day at the office.
yeah, basically traded 2 mana for 3 mana, and you have kept the removal spell. In response to the Saga fetch, we fetch, maybe playing around Pithing Needle.
Yeah, that's like pretty normal practice. You don't want to get caught by the needle by sleeping at the wheel. So yeah, pretty normal for Vintage to make a play like that.
Okay, now find something from Jose. We'll see if he can get into the driver's seat, because he seems to be behind. Both game 1 and game 2. Manifold Keys defined.
Yeah, so he could be looking to put together infinite turns via Time Vault and Manifold Key.
And yeah, the Time Vault on the stack. Force of Will in response, pitching Fluster. So if you're pitching Fluster, it means you've got something else cooked up in your hand, right? Or it was the only blue card, right?
I agree. That's the two options available.
Because normally you wouldn't. Oh, and so it was the only blue card, and he scoops them up. So, speaking of unfair angles, I guess that's it in Jose's deck.
Yeah, so I don't have deck list in front of me, but Time Vault, not Voltaic Key, Manifold Key, that's definitely an unfair angle to win the game out of nowhere. And especially with the help of Urza's Saga, it can get half of that combo. So that means drawing the card Time Vault is actually a huge threat, because then all you need is to get to the 3rd chapter of the saga, and then it's all over.
I'm actually reading into this Grixis list, trying to find these unfair angles inspired by this situation, and I can actually see Tinker and the classic pair, Bolas' Citadel, in there. I see Yawgmoth's Will. So there are some unfair things Jose could be doing, so that might be a way to get over the card advantage from Lurus, right?
Yeah, definitely. Having that angle, the Tinker Citadel angle, it can just win games out of nowhere. You do have to worry about your life total a little bit, especially facing off against Bowmasters and Confidants getting into the red zone. But the infinite turns combo, that works no matter what your life total is.
So we go Saga, Trigger, Mox Jet, Sensei's Divining Top. So is there any reason to sequence it this way? For example, maybe begin with the Mox, tap Mox for mana. Are we playing around anything specific?
Yeah, we're playing around the fact that HJ has Wastelands in his list, and if the Saga gets wasted on main phase, then you have to activate your top with that mana. So doing it this way, you get to activate top on end step depending on what happens throughout the whole turn of HJ. So just a little bit of flexibility on the Sensei's Divining Top by doing it this way.
Nice, nice, very good call. That situation materializes, so Jose has to think very well of himself at this point. Okay, flips a Mox off the top and passes with no land drop. How uncommon of a situation is that?
I would say so. Any hand with a Mox and a Ursa Saga is very, very tempting to keep. And if your top three doesn't have a blue mana, I guess that's just how it is sometimes.
Okay, and now we see Bob into Orcish Bowmasters. I'm really curious if the thing we've talked about materializes. So Bowmaster versus Bowmaster, because you always want to be the last one playing
Yeah,
the
in
Orc.
theory, if the Dark Confidant stays in play, that's great for the Dimir deck. If it gets killed by Bowmasters and you can follow up with the Bowmaster, that situation is also favorable for you. So that's the message I got from talking to the guys who developed that creature suite.
Yeah, and Wasteland in play, no targets. Pick up Lurus. If you're Jose, what kind of read maybe you can infer from that?
Yeah, so putting Lurus in hand here and not keeping up mana, that's basically saying I don't, from HJ's point of view, I'm not looking to Flusterstorm anything at the moment, which is probably correct. Let's see if I speak too soon. But this is a good time to spend my mana to get that card into hand, and then like, you kind of lose some tempo here and now, but that'll be great for a longer game. And I think it's a good way, it's a good time to do it with Jose sitting there on just two Moxes.
Can Pithing Needle deployed? What do you name in this position, knowing that HJ is a relatively fair deck? Black Lotus, maybe?
Oh, so first of all, you can't name mana abilities. So you would need to name, I would say, Wasteland in this spot, because the Grixis deck doesn't run Wasteland, I would say. I would guess. So probably naming Wasteland here.
Yeah, and there is a strip mine in hand, actually. Yeah, so the Wasteland on the battlefield, strip mine in hand. Lurus deployed, follow it up with this. Tap red, bolt Lurus in response, so an actual factual removal spell. And we've got Mardu, mana for Jose, no lands in play, 2 power on the field. It's going to take a long time to close the game, though.
It will for sure, and that's what HJ also recognized. I can play the Lurus now. I'll try and strip my opponent of the only blue source. I don't mind if this game goes long, but at the same time, the Sensei's Divining Top over enough time, just you keep manipulating your draw steps in a good way. So the longer the game goes, the player with the top is favored, I would say.
Okay, so Dark Confident on the stack. And Force of Will pitching, I think, Hull Breacher is that?
Yep.
Spell Pierce back. Misstep your Spell Pierce, pay to life. Okay, fighting over that confidence. So even though you've got Bowmasters, it doesn't really do anything now to that confident. Bash you for 2.
Yeah, it's interesting because theoretically, having that confidant in play could help Jose close out the game, but he's just afraid that the card advantage kind of spirals here. So he likes to keep up pressure with the Bowmaster and the friend, And fighting over the Confidant.
Okay, and he decides that he'd rather make a land drop now, so he activates Sensei's Divining Top, put it back on top, but draw a different card. In exchange, draw the top for the draw step, deploy it once again, but now unsuccessfully.
I like this play from HJ. He doesn't have he likes to he wants to use his mana in this situation, and he knows the top is what makes this game imbalanced if it goes like super long.
I can see Orcish Bowmasters in hand, so you can kill the opposing Bowmasters, trade the army token if you'd like.
Very heads-up play by Jose here. He's sensing the danger of opposing Bowmasters only sending the Orc token.
A high level of play in the feature match. I have to admit, Bowmasters on the stack response fetchland. So we'll see if there is any meaningful response. Underground Sea is defined in the face of Wasteland. Jose actually plays a single basic island in his deck.
I would guess the Wasteland is Pithing Needled, but I can't say for sure, but I would guess it is.
Okay, so now Ancestral myself in response to Bowmasters. I will force it in response, pitching Lorien Revealed. Okay, now we've got the trade-off of resources. Is there any argument to hold on to that Ancestral even longer? I know that Bowmaster resolves, but maybe it's better to get it resolved maybe on the opponent's upkeep, but give them a bigger army token, but get it resolved, or maybe tap the opponent out.
Yeah, the problem with that is this deck has a lot of copies of Force of Negation and hard casting. I think it's better to, let's say, force the quote-unquote him to Torok right away than tapping your opponent out.
Unfortunately, we don't know what's in Jose's hand because he could have the Time Vault thing and try to assemble it soon. So going through these forces is meaningful long-term for him if he can actually assemble a game-winning combination.
Yeah, so that's like one of the scary things from HJ's perspective, that Jose is able to finish the game in one swoop. So it's not really over until it's over, so to speak.
Yeah. We still have a live draw as, Tinker as a live draw. Black Lotus now. Wait, respond to Black Lotus. Hull Breacher. So Hull Breach is a 3 to flash threat. So in this particular position, it not only it blocks Orcish Bowmasters, it can actually kill in 3 attacks. And that's in addition to its passive ability.
Definitely. I think Jose was trying to play around HJ having Hardcast Force in hand, because I think he responded to the Lotus.
Yes, so yeah, he did, yeah.
Theoretically, he lost some equity if his plan was to kill the Bowmasters in combat, but he decided that playing around Hardcast Force Will was more important. Also, as you see with the Brainstorm in response, he could have really done some great things if he had more patience on that Hull Breacher, it looks like.
Okay, I think I caught a glimpse of a Force of Negation, Demonic Tutor, and something else. I can't really make out what that is. Dark Confident, pass the turn. So Hull Breacher has a clause against opponents who would draw a card except the first one, but Dark Confident doesn't technically draw. He puts into the hand, and that makes a difference rules-wise.
Definitely a good one. Hull Breacher even it negates everything except the draw step. So even if you play like cycle a card on the opponent's turn, it still turns into a treasure. So yeah, very strong card in a format of a lot of blue decks.
Okay, Wasteland revealed 0 life loss at 9. How confident would you be as HJ when you deploy Dark Confident and such a low life total with 5 drops in your deck?
Yeah, I think he's more confident than I am. I think I'm more scared than he is, thankfully. But I would be pretty worried here that I lose the game that I wasn't supposed to lose, if that makes sense. But on the other hand, that could be his. It could be a gamble he needs to take, right? Instead of just passing the turn against the unfair strategy.
Now picks up his whole deck, finds any card he wants. What is the card that he wants, in your opinion?
Maybe this will be a very, very, let's say, boring target, because that Hull Breacher kind of puts a damper on things. So there's a world where he just tutors up a good old removal spell.
Yes, I hope that we will be able to take a peek at what's been found. Now you're saying a removal spell. I'm not sure how many are available, because in the removal department I can see Drown in the Loch that we've already seen. We see Repeal and a single Fatal Push. That's about it.
Okay, I actually thought he was running at least one copy of Cut Down. I talked to him yesterday, but maybe he changed his mind.
Yeah, he does not. I'm looking at the sideboard and he doesn't run it in the sideboard either, although there you can find a Dismember.
Okay, that's interesting then.
There is also Soul Rend. That's an interesting one.
That's not something you see every day. It's a nod to the Mono White Initiative deck that is quite strong. You have to respect it.
Okay, Narset. And I can see from HeyJ's body language that I'm not sure he's happy about that development.
Narset is a good one. Not only does it negate your opponent's ability to draw extra cards, but it's like a dig through time divided over a couple of turns here.
Yeah, and for our maybe non-vintage fans, I have to say that Narset, interestingly, is restricted in vintage. This uncommon Planeswalker.
It sure is. I remember playing when it was legal as a 4-of, and the games were a lot less interesting than they are now. As a restricted card is just fine. Also, you give up playing Lurrus as a companion when you play that card. So I think it's well balanced at the one copy that legal.
Okay, so another confident trigger, but we see a Mox revealed, so 0 life loss.
Yeah, he hasn't had any problem with the life loss from the Confidant just yet.
Yeah, Academy tapping for 4 mana right now, thanks to triple Mox and Pithing Needle. Pass the turn back. So this is kind of board stallish. Who's ahead, would you say?
I think because of the life total, I would slightly favor Jose. Also because he can just draw Ursus Saga at any minute, and then that's probably gonna put him in an advantageous position because of the needle on Wasteland.
How often do you play Time Walk as an explore? Because, if you're not doing anything else, that's exactly what it does.
So if I have, we saw it actually on the previous match. So if I just have land Mox, I'll happily play turn 1. Sometimes you ramp into something great. Sometimes you make another land drop. Sometimes you find what you need. Whew, yeah.
What about this? Time Walk into Tinker. Was Time Walk a bait, maybe?
Yeah, I'm really not too sure about that. It could be, because by playing like this, I think Jose is more susceptible to Flusterstorm. So it must have been like some kind of bait.
Yeah, Tinker on the stack. Let me take a look at the deck list. So we've got Bolas's Citadel as the hallmark, Tinker target. And that's probably what would be defined.
Yeah, so if you don't have any of the Manifold Key or Time Bolt available, you go for Bolas's Citadel. If you have one of those, you can combo and take infinite turns.
Okay, looking at the deck, so he doesn't seem confident in what to find. So maybe Bolas's Citadel, from his perspective, isn't such an obvious choice after all.
Yeah, the Bowmasters can be a little bit scary, but I think if you play somewhat conservatively, you'll be fine. Oh, look at that.
Portal to Phyrexia, straight from the sideboard as a 1 of there. Oh, but this is another sideboard threat. Sphinx of the Steel Wind, a 6/6 flying first strike, vigilance, lifelink, protection from red and from green. Wow, so I'm looking at it as a Tinkerable Atraxa when you look at it as a threat. Multiple keywords, flying.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And Jose must have thought during sideboarding that this match is pretty fair, and my opponent probably has zero ways to deal with the Sphinx. So let's say I'm at a low life total and I can't rely on Bolus's Citadel, and I don't have any of my Manifold Key or Time Vault. What tutor target do I want for my Tinker? So he added even both. He added the Portal and the Sphinx. And it looks like it is very hard for HJ to deal with in this particular situation.
Let me take a look at HJ's deck list to see if he can remove the Sphinx in any capacity, and he can drown it because the protection is from red and green, so he can drown it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Expensively, he can repeal it, but no, Sphinx of the Steel Wind takes down this match 2-1 for Jose. Grixis control with the Tinker angle takes it down against Lurus control.
Yeah,
What a match.
That was a great match. I think the needle on the Wastelands played a huge part, that we, like an invisible influence of the outcome that we couldn't really see. But yeah, Jose sat there on non-blue mana for such a long time and still ended up winning pretty convincingly. That's something to think about.
Yeah, that was really exciting. And it taps into what you've said, which is you really want to have just at least a bit of that unfair angle, right? And that's what won him both games. That bit of unfairness, right?
That's true. Infinite turns and cheating out a big lifelinker.
So before we finish the round, I would like to give a huge shout out to Ultimate Guard. With the code EternalUG10, you can get a nice discount, 10% on all of your purchases, and it's live today, but also tomorrow. So yeah, use that code, buy some nice Sidewinders for your vintage decks. Thank you for this round. We'll take a bit of a break, and I'll see you in a bit.